Monster. Monster, I think, is probably my favorite anime slash manga of all time. Maybe if I think about it, probably even I'd go so far to say my favorite media of all time in all shows in general, which is a fairly high bar. And I think this, I'll just call it a series, right? This series is criminally underrated by so many people, and I couldn't recommend it enough for anyone not just interested in anime, but interested in any media in general, right? I would go so far to say that it is a masterpiece. And in these sort of anime manga circles, it's often not brought up as much as I think it should be when we're talking about the best that there is. And I think the reason why is just the culture that anime and manga attract, the kinds of people this media attracts, is often just a lot of people who just want to see ass and titties and cool power scaling fights, and that's really sums it all up, and Monster just doesn't have enough of that. And the very few things that I do see about Monster in the current day and age is oftentimes very concerning, and that is the Johann glazing. That's usually the mostly like 90% of what I see from this franchise, right? From this series, is just people glazing Johann. That's it. And that is extremely concerning to me, especially with how much good stuff Monster has and how many good things to take away from this series. And all people seem to focus on is, Johann's so cool. And this is something I see a lot, and especially when the whole, like, Sigma, red pill, alpha male movement was at its peak a while back, I saw this a fuck ton, right? A lot of these shitty TikTok-type edits, these, like, what are they called? Like, Sigma edits or whatever you want to call them, where it's like, oh, it's so cool and whatnot, with these, like, funk beats and shit like that. A lot of these, right? Everyone remembers these. There's still a few of these around, floating around and whatnot. Thank God this trend and this movement is starting to die. And with like things like the recent CoffeeZilla thing and whatnot, and a lot of the fresh and fit news and whatnot, this whole alpha male, red pill, manosphere circle is starting to crumble and fall apart. So thank God. Right, but this movement had a lot of shitty edits glorifying not only real people like Andrew Tate and whatnot, but also fictional characters too. You know, everyone's seen the Sigma male Patrick Bateman and whatnot, and to some extent these are jokes, but sometimes some of these I don't think are ironic, and a lot of these were made seriously and taken seriously too, right? And a lot of these are idealizing fictional killers, and sometimes even real killers, which is even more messed up. And these are not the people we should be idolizing. These are not the people we should want to strive to be, and especially Johann. Johann was no exception in this, and he got quite a bit of these Sigma rule edits and bullshit, right? Which, like I said, a lot of them blur the line of trying to be a joke and the whatnot, but some of these are certainly serious, and a lot of people seem to be taking these seriously too. And Johann is everything you should not strive to be. And if you are idolizing Johann, you are missing the entire point of the series. Johann is not a happy person. He is not the kind of person you want to be. And a lot of people especially use that whole, the scenes of him being like, go ahead, shoot me and whatnot, and completely missing the whole point of those. And being like, and it's not like, the point of those is not like a kill me if you can kind of thing. Like, oh my god, he's such a badass. The point of these is like, he is severely fucking depressed. And there's a lot more to his character than that, and I don't want to dissect his whole character right now, but it's like, he wants to die, essentially. No matter how you slice it, his goal in the end is he wants to kill himself. He wants to die, right? That is not the sign of a happy person. That is not a healthy person. He is not a person you should strive to be and want to be. And a lot of times when taking into this whole hustle grind culture bullshit, it's very unhealthy. A lot of this shit is very unhealthy, and a lot of the people that are being idolized are unhealthy as well. But I don't know, maybe Johann is a good representation of a lot of this red pill movement and a lot of this hustle grind culture movement and whatnot, given his very idealistic nature of kind of like a survival of the fittest, dog eat dog kind of mentality. But once again, this is not a healthy mentality either, and is not the point, and anyone idolizing this is missing the point in general. But there are a couple other characters that some might want to lean into this Sigma category, like, for example, the sexiest man alive, Roberto.
Yeah. TikTok, heavy like a Brinks truck, looking like I'm TikTok, shining like a wristwatch. I'ma grab your wrist, lock it down to the thing pop. Can you stick around for a minute till the rain stop? Please God. TikTok, heavy like a Brinks truck, looking like I'm TikTok, shining like a wristwatch. I'ma grab your wrist, lock it down to the thing pop. Can you stick around for a minute till the rain stop? Please God. As time keeps slipping away, girl, don't start feeling away. You and I, we are one and the same. Loving
But what I want to talk about today is a character that's a little bit less major than Johan, and a character that more likely embodies the hustle grind culture a little bit more, and what something like this actually leads to, and that is Mr. Maurer. Maurer is a character that really only shows up in one episode, and in the manga, this is about 2 chapters. Maurer works as an editor for the Heidelberg Post, and he works day and night, and overall is rude and has a lot of bad habits. He has unhealthy eating habits, he neglects his personal hygiene, but most importantly, he smokes. Our protagonist, Dr. Tenma, comes to the Heidelberg Post to gain information, and of course asks Maurer for his help. And during this episode, Tenma and Maurer have a conversation, and Maurer discusses that both his wife and his daughter have left him because he works a lot. Maurer shows that he clearly still cares for them and thinks about them, but instead of addressing his feelings or trying to make a situation better, he buries himself in his work further. And surrounding this character, there's a big emphasis on his smoking addiction, and Tenma gives him the advice that he should try to quit smoking and reconnect with his family, since he clearly still has feelings for them. And this is something that I think is really part of the beauty of Monster, as well as Urasawa's writing. And that is that any good writing, everything should have a reason. You shouldn't put something in something for no reason and that has no point and goes nowhere. That's just bad writing, right? But I think the smoking is a sign of very good writing, and I think it is symbolic in a way. I believe that every little thing in Monster has some level of significance and a bit more of a deeper meaning, and I think even the smallest details have a point, and these cigarettes, I believe, are a metaphor. And cigarettes are, of course, addicting. Look, man, I ain't a fed or nothing. Do what you want at the end of the day.
Well,
but cigarettes are often a bad habit, and people get hooked on them and try to quit, but like many addicting things, quitting is easier said than done. But not only cigarettes, but also other drugs are often used to substitute for pain and to relieve your suffering and almost give you a false sense of security or joy. I believe that these cigarettes are symbolic of addiction, habit, and wheel chasing. And it's shown time and time again that throughout the series, there's a large emphasis on cigarettes, not just when Maurer smokes, but also other characters too. And it's oftentimes pointed out and put in plain view, oftentimes focusing on the shots of these cigarettes. It's a vicious cycle that the characters don't want to be a part of, and others don't appreciate, but this is what they know. And these characters are simply just going through the motions, doing what they know, even if they don't like it, even if they don't think it's right, but because it's easier than addressing their problems. But it's not just their smoking. Well, yeah, Mr. Maurer smokes. That's not the core of his issue. He neglected his family and buried himself in his work. And he can make all the excuses he wants that he was doing it for them and that he was bringing more money to the family and try to make it some selfless act. But the truth is that it clearly was not. And this wasn't what his family wanted. His family wanted him to be a part of their lives, and clearly it wasn't for them because the moment they're gone, he's still working. His habits haven't changed. And with all this work, you have to sit back and ask yourself, are you happy? Is this really what you want? Is this worth it in the end, to earn all this extra money and do all this extra work, but not have anyone to enjoy it with, not even enjoy it yourself? Come back to an empty house day after day, work all day and all night, and there's no real payoff for it, and you don't even have the time to enjoy it yourself. Is this really what you want? Are you really happy in the end? What even is the point of working so much if you can't even enjoy it, and you can't even enjoy it with somebody else? And this brings parallels to another character that's a bit more major than Mr. Maurer, and that is Inspector Lunge. Lunge has a similar relationship with his family, but hasn't gone as far. Now, he's not exactly the same as Maurer, given that Lunge is severely autistic and loves his job. He is constantly doing detective work and never gives it a break. He is seen almost like a machine, and just like Maurer, his work habits put a lot of strain on his personal relationship. Despite him being such a brilliant detective and being aware of every little thing and taking every little thing into account and being extremely focused on each and every case, ironically, he isn't even aware of what's going on in his own family and his own relationships. He's so obsessed with his job and his own personal work, he's not even aware that his daughter is pregnant. His family leaves him, and like Maurer, he buries himself further in his work. And throughout the series, he still tries to keep a relationship with his daughter and his newly born grandchild, but he makes often a lot of false promises and that he can't keep, and still takes his work as a priority over his family. And at the end of the series, when he is faced with his own mortality and faced with the prospect of not only himself dying, but his family, he realizes where he went wrong, and he starts to appreciate and values them more. He realizes that if he truly wants to be a part of his family's life, he must make sacrifices, and after the events of the series, he steps down as inspector. He takes on a new role, and for the first time in his life, having his family take priority over his job. But sadly, Mauer didn't get this. Mauer didn't get his happy ending. Mauer went through his whole life thinking that someday it might pay off. Someday he might be happy. Someday he might get to spend time with his family. And someday, all of the long hours he has worked and all of his labor may be worth it. But never taking a second, never taking a moment to just be there, to just be in the moment and be there with his family, be there with his loved ones. But not even taking a second to realize that happiness was right there, that everything he wanted the whole time was right in front of his face, and he didn't take it. He didn't even realize it. He neglected it until it was gone. And not until he realized that they were gone did he realize his mistakes, right? And this is the importance of balance. This is the importance of having a balance of work and play in your life. You need a little bit of both. Your life can't just be work, 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 and play, play, play. And I'm not saying that you should not work at all or try to avoid doing work, but you need a little bit of both. You need to have a balance of both, because in the end, both of these lead to depression. And in my personal life, I've been there. I've been on both sides of the spectrum, and I've had points in my life where all I want to do is play, 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 and I didn't give a shit about anything. And I would skip school, skip classes, skip my responsibilities and doing the things that I need or should be doing, just so I could screw around, goof off with friends, go and hang out with people and play video games and do the things that I want to do instead of doing the things that I should be doing. And in the end, that it didn't really even mean anything, that my life didn't mean anything. And I've wasted the entire thing just screwing around and goofing off and had no accomplishments of my own and nothing to be proud of whatsoever. And I've also been on the other side of the spectrum, where all I did was work, 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 and I just went through the motions day after day and worked day and night trying to juggle all kinds of things, trying to keep up my grades, juggle my classes, do all these things, and do all this other useless, nonsensical shit, waking up early. And I even went so far, like I said, I used to weightlift. I used to weightlift a lot, and I weightlifted day and night. I would wake up early in the morning, run, work out. Sometimes I'd skip school just to work out, and then after school I'd get, instead of going home, I would just work out more. I was working out sometimes 2, sometimes even 3 times a day, not taking any rest periods, not taking any breaks, not giving my body proper time to rest. And not to mention, I also did Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, and I did those almost every single day. In fact, I have this competition trophy for a Muay Thai exhibition fight that I did. And just working every single day like a madman, day in, day out, neglecting my friends, neglecting my relationships, neglecting people who loved and cared about me just because I had my own issues that I just refused to address. I had my own problems that I just didn't want to face, and I thought, maybe just because I'm unhappy now, maybe this might pay off. Maybe there might be some value in this later. Maybe this might be good. Torturing the shit out of myself the way that I did. And it went so far into the point where, since I wasn't giving my body time to rest, working out heavy every single day, multiple times a day, training nonstop, it came to the point where I fucked up my left arm. My left arm is permanently damaged and will likely never work the same way it used to. Every once in a while, I still get pain in it trying to lift, not even particularly heavy objects. And every once in a while, it will flare up and cause an immense amount of pain. And that's just the way it is. It likely will never be the same again. And it sucks to say, because I worked too hard. And not until that happened did I realize I didn't need this and that this wasn't worth it. And I realized the things that I had, and I realized that just being in the moment and just being around friends, that there were people who gave a shit, right? There were people in my life that I could talk to and whatnot, and that I didn't need this, and that things were okay the way that they were. And I neglected so much of my life, not sleeping right, not getting enough sleep, sometimes only running off 4 to 5 hours of sleep daily, and I felt like shit. Every day felt like shit. I wasn't playing video games, I wasn't watching TV, I wasn't hanging out with friends, I didn't have any real relationships, and it was just not healthy. It made everything so much worse. But this is what these red pill guru motherfuckers expect from you. This is what they want from you. They think that this is healthy, that this is good. Working, you're not a real man if you don't work 80 hours a day or 80 hours a day. That's what they really expect from you. Work 80 hours a fucking day, 80 hours a week, right? It's ridiculous. That's not it. That's not. And during this period of time, this was probably the darkest period of my life. And I saw no real benefits from it. I saw no real results from it. It wasn't worth it in the slightest. And I used weightlifting and training and combat sports as a way to essentially substitute my pain, as a way to bury myself in my anger, and instead of addressing my own problems, my own issues that I had, and I tried to essentially substitute my pain with all of this other shit, just like a drug. I used it as a drug. No different than the cigarettes that the other characters in this series use. And recently I realized it's about balance. Life is about balance, that you need a little bit of both. You need a little bit of all of the above, right? And there's a time for work and there's a time for play. And I still work out, never every day, never multiple times a day, and usually not even that hard necessarily, especially because I can't. And usually, 2-3 times a week is more than enough for me for about an hour. I don't necessarily go hard, and if my arm starts to flare up, if anything doesn't feel right, I listen to my body. And I may never be the biggest guy ever. I may never be the biggest, strongest alpha male or whatever, but I don't need to be, and I don't want to be either. But on the flip side, I still leave a lot of time to do the things that I like to do the things that I want to do. I still hold an 8-hour job and still work overtime some days, as well as I still have time to play video games. I still have time to read comics. I still have time for my friends and my family and personal relationships. I have time to do everything that I want to do because I do it all in moderation. And at the end of the day, after all of that, I still go and get 8 hours of sleep. Right, and that's what it's about. That's what life is about that balance, and that's the important thing to keep in mind. It's not about the money, it's not about the hustle, and it's not about the grind. And hell, it's not about the opposite either. It's not about just doing whatever you want, doing what feels good in the moment, and looking for instant gratification and that quick hit of dopamine rush, right? It's about a little bit of both at the end of the day. It's about balance, and in the end, the hustle and grind is a never-ending game that won't bring you happiness. And just like cigarettes are a bad habit used to run from your problems instead of addressing them. And while it may feel good at first doing these things, at some point you're going to hate it. And that's why you need to just live your life and do what you need to do and appreciate the things and the people around you before it's too late.